Let's continue talking about the fabric device roles. In this case, we're going to talk about the fabric mode access points. The access points connected to the fabric will be connected to edge nodes or extended nodes. And this access point will let these nodes know they are access points because they are going to use Cisco Discovery Protocol to do so. And they will also operate only in local mode. You cannot use any other mode in the fabric. For instance, you cannot use flex mode. And we have to make sure that the wireless LAN controller is 20 milliseconds away from the access points. Regarding routing, remember that the wireless LAN controller is usually placed in an external network that can be a shared services block, or we can place it in an on-premise data center. So we have to make sure to advertise the IP address that belongs to the wireless LAN controller into our underlay. Remember that we have an underlay that is running a routing protocol, and we have a global routing table in it. So the access points and all the nodes within the underlay should be able to locate this IP address that belongs to the wireless LAN controller within the underlay. And we have to advertise also the IP addresses that belong to the access points into the external network. The border node is in charge of doing that. And given we are sharing prefixes between an external global routing table and the global routing table that belongs to the underlay, we don't need a fusion router, because fusion routers usually do route leaking, and in this case we don't need that in order to communicate the wireless LAN controller to the access points. A detail here: the IP address that belongs to these access points live within a particular overlay virtual network that is known as the infra virtual network. This is a particular overlay virtual network because it is mapped into the global routing table. Now, with the fabric, we are still using tunnels. So we are still having cap-WAP tunnels between the wireless LAN controller and the access point. Now, the traffic for this tunnel, when coming from the access point into the wireless LAN controller, is going to use the underlay. So the access point will look for the IP address that belongs to the loopback IP address of the wireless LAN controller within my global routing table. So the nodes will look for that IP address in the FIF. Now, the traffic coming back from the wireless LAN controller to the access point, when it reaches the border node, then it will be tunnel inside a VXLAN tunnel. So that means that traffic coming from the wireless LAN controller to the access point for these cap-WAP tunnels will use the overlay. The hardware that you will need for your access points in fabric mode will be the new generation of 9100s catalyst or some a specific version of old access points, either wave 2 access points or wave 1 access points, you can always take a look at the Cisco SD-Access compatibility list in order to know what access points can support the fabric mode. That's it.